Yeah, hello everybody. Welcome to this week's dev session. I think we're jumping directly into our agenda, what we want to talk this week. We have skipped last week discussing a little bit about the testing frameworks. Today, Bernhard and Florian and Christoph are the main guy, and Oscar as well, are the main guys who are more familiar and using different testing frameworks. So maybe we can discuss quickly about this. Then it would be good if Bernhard can give an overview about the API and the current focus with the login security. I think we just lost Bernhard.
Yeah, I think he's afraid to talk about that.
Yeah, I think he has some issues with network. And yeah, we skipped the topic with the new trade protocol. We have tomorrow in the Gross call a high-level overview about the trade protocol. Neumann will be there and will host this. And we skip it for probably next week because otherwise it would be too much content for this week. And maybe Florian can give a little bit of overview about the current peer-to-peer network monitoring. But let's keep this at the end, and maybe it's also good enough for next week or an upcoming session. And I would like to discuss a little bit a general strategy, how we can achieve this cross-domain knowledge transfer. And I have a few suggestions how to do this. And yeah, maybe we can discuss about this. Maybe, I don't know, maybe at the beginning already. It's more a general conceptual thing, and then getting directly into the more concrete topics. Do you guys have anything what's important for you to discuss today?
Nothing special from my side.
I'm fine too.
Yeah, then maybe I jump into this more general discussion. I had the idea basically that we are focusing one of the next sessions to one topic, like for instance, a new trade protocol. We have usually a proposal, which is kind of like a tech spec, or it should be basically like a tech spec that you get at least a high-level idea from a development side, what this new feature project is about and how it's implemented. And I would like that basically all developers are reviewing those proposals and really understand it, at least on a high level at least, and to give them feedback, and then we're discussing about this. So the goal would be that maybe when we start with the new trade protocol for next week, that every developer is reading the proposal, what's out there. There's a kind of like a tech spec out, what I've written, and it takes maybe 1 hour, I assume, so something like 9 pages. And just, that you have a good understanding of it, and then discuss it, or what, if there are any open questions, if there are concerns, what you see or whatever. Basically that every developer is doing a review on that proposal, and then the developer who is working on it make more or less give a good overview about the proposal, also for non-Bisq developers or other people who are watching the session, that they get a good idea about this project and a little bit overview about the current state and whatever, and then feedback from the other developers from this review. And I would like to do this then for all the other projects what we're working on, like at the moment it's this new trade protocol, API, peer-to-peer network monitoring, the Bitcoin J work from Oscar, and the DAO work. I think those are the current real projects. I mean, on the UI side, I think it's more general. I'm not sure if there is a kind of like a isolated project what you would like to bring in, but of course we can do this anytime as well.
That was the question I wanted to ask, is when do we create a tech proposal, a proposal itself, and when do we just create pull requests? So is there kind of a scope that if it is the work of, let's say, a month, then we need a proposal, or is there another kind of guideline for that?
Yeah, I think there's no really hard limiter. So I would say the stuff what you are at the moment working is probably not a proposal. It's not really a new extra feature. I mean, the redesign would have been something like this. And when there is like a a bigger project like this new user onboarding or when there's something really bigger which is more contained in a new, where you say that's really a new bigger feature, it's not the smaller thing, I think then it's worth to make a proposal. Or when you basically need to write it down for yourself also to get a good overview, when it's too big for, that's not the task, it's not a simple task where you know what you do and you don't need to really discuss it big. Good example is all this what we are doing at the moment. What I mentioned is like especially the new trade protocol is a perfect use case for a proposal. It's a big project at the end, and it requires a tech spec because it's too complex and too many details what you need to consider. Just having the brain is not enough for this.
Do you think it makes sense to have kind of a BSQ limit later on? Also, if a kind of a compensation request for a feature exceeds X amount of BSQ, then it has to have a proposal upfront, or is it still too less flexible for use cases?
I'm not sure if we should add this restriction, but of course it's very related. When any work which takes longer, like 2 weeks, would be basically a candidate for a proposal. But sometimes it's small things which needs more conceptual thought, like there are some changes how we deal with assets. I mean, they are sometimes easily implemented in 2 days or so, but it's important to discuss it with the community also, and it's more to think on the conceptual side that it goes in the right direction.
I mean, besides the conceptual, if it makes sense to discuss stuff, just if we want to prevent that people start working on a big feature, maybe it makes sense, and then they're frustrated if they didn't get any compensation because, I don't know, they want to have 50,000 BSQ, and if they would have known that if it exceeds X amount of BSQ, then you need a proposal up front, which basically gets read by core contributors or contributors in general, and it will prevent the not compensation of this kind of work.
Exactly, that's very important that anybody who is planning to do any feature, any whatever, they should start with a proposal to get early feedback, because when somebody is doing whatever, a cold wallet storage for Bisq, very interesting feature, but it needs to go in the right direction. And when this person doesn't understand that, for instance, you need to make the signing in a non-interactive way during the trade when somebody takes your offer and somebody is not really familiar with the trade protocol and just implement it, it will not be, it will not really work. Or we need to think how it would fit with Bisq, and to avoid that effort goes in the wrong direction and then contributors frustrated, proposals help to clarify it early. And
okay,
yes.
So how about if we just make it very pragmatic? So at least there has to be an issue if you want to get compensated for stuff, and if an issue is added, then it's read by us anyways, and then we can advise whoever is working on this kind of issue that he needs to create a proposal, or does it make that it makes sense to create a proposal up front?
Yeah, I think those bigger projects, what we have in mind, are basically always in the hand of the active developers. I don't assume that the completely new developer who doesn't know much about Bisq yet is working on a bigger project, because you need the knowledge, and then we get in touch, and then we are, then the communication already happens, that it's avoided. But we can have this for sure as general rule of thumb, that you start with an issue, and when you work on something bigger, then get in touch and write a proposal and get discussion there. We had in the past with, I don't remember his name, was a guy who had an alternative API architecture and version and so on, and then it turned out that we need to bring this together. It doesn't make sense that there are two different API implementations. It's a waste of development time and so on. And it was good to stop this early instead of waste a lot of development time and then later just add problems for this, because we need to maintain it. And I get the feedback from somebody, I think it's Neumann. Yeah, I know it's away. So I think communication is always good to have here early, and especially like what we have at the moment with the API work. they're very important questions for security, how we do, when people are running their headless Bisq version with the wallet and everything on a cloud server and want to connect via mobile or whatever, we have to be sure to deliver enough security infrastructure to not leave it completely to the hand of the users, because when they make mistakes, at the end they blame Bisq, even if it's not our fault. So I want to avoid it that by default you get quite good security. It's still your responsibility and you still can make mistakes and whatever, but at least that we do everything from our knowledge to do the best, implement the best practices basically. And it's also related then to the mobile application, which will be a main consumer of this API, and how to log in, especially from Android mobile, which are very exposed to a lot of malware and so on. Basically, it's an untrusted device. So you have to count with situations that maybe you have a keylogger on your mobile and you don't want to just rely on the security of a password, because with the keylogger, it's not secure anymore. And and luckily we have a security and cryptography expert in our team, Florian. And I would like that Florian is a little bit the advisor and review about this, the suggested implementation what Bernard has designed and suggested. I'm not sure if we should stick directly now with this topic or first go to the testing framework. I mean, the testing framework is not so burning with the API work. We need basically a solution. So maybe let's stick with this and let's see when we have enough time talk about the testing framework later, and otherwise move it to the next session. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Welcome, Ulrich, by the way. Hi. Maybe I hand it over to Bernard at this moment, and maybe Bernard, you give an overview. What's your plan, and what do you think about this? And maybe Florian can give a little bit of input. There have been already discussion on the proposal for this API login security. I myself have not followed the latest comments, so maybe you can give an update to everybody, and then anybody can add whatever they can add to this topic.
Sure. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Okay, so the idea is to expose the API, HTTP API on local host on some socket like port 8080, and that would be accessible from local scripts or programs. But to access the API remotely, like from the mobile device, or maybe if the API is hosted on the on some server in the cloud, then we want to have a secure connection. And there's a problem with SSL certificates because you need to have a domain. So that's an additional problem. And since we already use Tor, we could expose this socket over Tor. Tor is able to basically expose anything that is bound to your local host. It will expose it as a hidden service, which is accessible to anything that is that has access to the Tor network. So if we want to secure our API from the malicious local processes, or for example from cross-site request forgery. So for example, you go to some page and there's an image which wants to load from localhost, then we would have to add some password protection. So the idea is that every request should be accompanied by authorization header, and that header would contain a token, access token. Access token will be could be obtained by authenticating, so hitting one of our API's endpoints, and user would have to provide password. If the password is valid, they would get a token, and that token is valid for all the other requests, except for changing the password. If you want to change the password, you have to provide old password and the new password. And for mobile devices, regarding access from Tor, we know that at least the Android has Orbot application, which works in VPN mode. So basically, it routes all the traffic from that device through Tor and makes everything, all the hidden services, accessible to all applications, so both the browser and custom apps. And I think that there is also one for iOS.
Do you know if this application allows to run a hidden service on your Android, as if it works also that?
Orbot? No.
Yeah.
No. It only accesses.
But
it only can access.
I think there are applications where you run a hidden service on your mobile device, because when the connection would be that, let me quickly think. Yeah, that the connection channel is built from you make a request to the server that you want to get connected to your hidden service on the mobile, and you have to define your onion address on the server. So the server will only connect to this hidden service. So you make first a connection to the server, then the server will connect you and close the ingoing connection, and then you can be sure that only your device, which were authorized basically because you have added this onion address to the server, can have this connection, and anybody else who managed to get your password and even maybe your two-factor authentication key that has no. Yeah, he would need to have your onion address as your private key. Of course, when he has access to your mobile, when your mobile is corrupted, he will also have the private key then. So it maybe doesn't really add much, but maybe that, I'm not sure. It makes it maybe more complicated, because then you need really a application which supports that you're running as a hidden service and not just a normal HTTP request, which is of course more accessible and probably doesn't really add. For this use case, I think important is also to say what are the threat models. So we assume that your server is not compromised. So when your server is already compromised, yeah, you have no chance. I mean, forget it. Then your wallet lies there and everything. So the assumption, I think, is like with Bisq as well. So when your desktop is compromised, you're not safe point. We cannot help you then. But of course, we have to deal when you're mobile, especially with Android. I think that's a very valid or very, unfortunately, very realistic use case, that your Android is compromised. And yeah, we need, I think with a two-factor authentication, when you have a second device where you have the two-factor authentication, we have probably sufficiently enough security. When the user is using the two-factor on the same mobile, of course, it doesn't help much. But yeah, from my point of view, and I think, yeah, with this idea, with using the hidden service on your mobile, that you get connected from the server to your mobile, will not add much, because when your mobile is compromised, then the attacker has access to the private key, and yeah, that doesn't really help much, probably.
Mm-hmm. And the local trading bot would also go over the Tor network then as well?
No, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to, but still the assumption is that you don't have any, that your local traffic is not being monitored.
Yeah, so local host has to be safe. When you're compromised on the local host level, you're lost.
But to prevent this keylogger attack, is it somehow possible to use SSH keys to connect to a local host server? I don't know. Also, I haven't tried it out myself, but then at least we don't have to kind of type in a password, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. Have you thought about this, Bernard or Florian? Do you have any input to that?
Yeah, well, I think client SSL authentication would be valid, but again, your certificate has to be stored on disk, and if your system is compromised, there is no added security to that.
Yeah, I also think, I mean, the problem with the keylogger, you have to assume that your system is unsecure, and then the only help is to have a second device where you hope it's not compromised as well.
Yeah, true.
I think, we want to keep usability easy also. So when it's more complicated, how you create them, the key and so on, I think the login with password and to have a two-factor authentication on another device, that's a standard what every user can do. So there, yes, that's probably the lowest requirement for a user. And when we get enough security for these threat models, what we have, I think that should be probably good enough.
Yeah, be careful. Sorry, be careful about two-factor authentication. As the proposal already stated, the two-factor authentication via a time-based one-time password as a second factor. The only thing that induces into the security of the whole system is the liveliness check. So the one-time password is only accepted once, and that's it. Aside from that, it's a second password and nothing more. If you want to use true two-factor authentication, you have to use a second device. Now, if you use a trading bot on your local host, yes, it's okay. You can use your mobile phone or something like that. Very good. On the second thought, yeah, it's the local host. So if you're compromised there, two-factor authentication might not increase the security by much, except you have a greater, you have to do much more to get the thing up and running every time. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was referring to two-factor authentication, that you have it on a different device, otherwise it doesn't add. It's, yeah, as you said, it's the second password, but when somebody managed to hack one password, he will manage to hack the second password, so that doesn't. And of course, it's a little bit a challenge. Not everybody has two mobiles where they can say, okay, I'm logging in here, and then on the other mobile, I have the two-factor authentication app. I'm not sure, I've never seen it, but I assume that you can use your normal desktop or laptop. I mean, I think most people have two devices, and those who don't, yeah, I think then you don't have so much security, and it's difficult to serve such people who would not fit in this pattern.
Exactly, that is where I was going. If you have just one mobile phone and you are on the brink of using your mobile phone to control your Bisq instance that is running on your home computer, for example, and you're trying to use two-factor authentication, it's not really a second factor because you use this one mobile phone to control the API. So you have just one factor, and
I mean, we need to make very clear to the user that two-factor authentication only adds security when you have it on a different device. Otherwise, yeah, it's a nice to have, but doesn't give you more security.
For my personal experience, but I think that I'm quite an extreme situation where I have a phone, but I hardly use it. It's never with me. I have like a USB key, which is like for 2FA. So then I can have, 2FA using my laptop. It's just that the USB key is like an extra device that only does this. As I said, it's not. I don't think that many people do that, but the option exists.
Yeah, that's a good point. When it's not extremely much effort to support different type of 2FA, also like with YubiKey or something like this, that would make it more flexible. I think we also have to see it a little bit in the broader use case scenarios. I mean, one use case is the normal Bisq user who want to use Bisq over the mobile phone, and that can be quite mainstream users who are not very technical skilled. But I think the first use case will be more people who are using either as a trading bot or that they just want to have it running on the server where they have the office and the laptop don't need to be online. And those are often a little bit more technical skilled users where we can assume also that they have at least a second device, like a normal laptop or a second mobile or whatever, or a YubiKey or something like this. And then when they don't have anything and they are more exposed to risk, then we have to make it clear what's basically the maximum risk. It's that the Bitcoin what you have on the wallet, and of course in the API access for withdrawing Bitcoin also we can add extra. I'm not sure if it's easy to add extra security here, but at least usually it's only that, I mean, what you can do, you can take offers, you can make trades and such stuff, so you cannot easily steal directly the money. And yeah, and even when you're when you fall into this high risk users, then you shouldn't have much Bitcoin, and you have maybe only half a Bitcoin or whatever. And in the worst case, when you get hacked, you have lost half a Bitcoin. It's not the end of the world. So I think, yeah, you have to see it in this different context to, you don't get perfect security for all use cases, and maybe you don't need it because the maximum damage is limited to the Bitcoin what you can lose at the end.
Yeah, well, if I experience only a single time I lose half a Bitcoin because the system got compromised, I would probably never use Bisq again. And
no, sure. As it's already a terrible event. I just say it's not. I mean, when somebody managed to hack into your bank account, it's probably much worse.
Yes, but if somebody hacks into your bank account, you may have jurisdiction and the law on your side.
Yeah, sure. No. I mean, so one thing is, for instance, for withdrawing, I think we should have the API configurable that you don't allow certain API access, like doing withdrawal, that you just don't allow it, because when you want to withdraw, you're logging into your server and do it there manually, only over localhost, or you change this property, this configuration, and then you do the withdrawal, and then you change it back to that you're not allowing it from a remote. So that we have basically a limited set what you can do from a remote access. And even for you, as it's only for those users who don't have real two-factor authentication on a second device, when we don't find another way how we can add more security against the compromised device, and probably that's a hard problem. Otherwise, it would be everybody would know it. So I assume that there will be probably not good protection against this. Then, you can help yourself by limiting the damage. Then an attacker could maximally trying to take some of his offers or doing some trades which are not in your favor or whatever. But that's not the same level of exposure like or like risk, like when somebody is stealing your Bitcoin from your wallet. Then there's the arbitration process and everything. So it's then not so easy for the attacker to really get your Bitcoin.
Well, if somebody gains access to your desktop to API of your computer, then they will just complete the whole trade, right? And your wallet will be empty in the end, and you're not going to be. The escrow will be released by signatures from both the buyer and seller, and the arbitrator cannot do anything here.
Yeah, it's true. You only have basically the 10 minutes for the block confirmation. I mean, users who one important part is to use the notification service, but of course, when you receive it on the same device, it doesn't really help you. That's probably also very limited help at the end, because of course the attacker could make a trade to himself, make quickly the confirmation of everything, and then has the payout, and you're lost as a seller. It's it's only the risk for you when you're the seller. When you're the buyer, it's only your the security deposit at risk. That's much less. Yeah, I think we just need to make it clear to the user when he's using this and he doesn't have a real two-factor authentication with a second device, he's basically not safe and he shouldn't use it. And when he's still using it, I mean, it's like people using Bisq over a Windows machine. I mean, it's terribly unsafe at the end, but people are doing it. 80% of our users have Windows, which I don't really understand, but that crypto people are still stuck on Windows. But yeah, you're on the risk with this, and
yes, and I think that's exactly the point, because if you say that users only use two-factor authentication when they truly have two different devices and so on, and they maybe the same 90% of users you said are still using Windows. Stop reading at the word two-factor authentication, say, well, that is great and I use it, and they do not care about having two different devices and so on. The question, I think, is that the main issue is the user always.
Yeah. But
should we foreclose some behavior, or should we completely leave it to the user?
I mean, at the end, the problem is not as severe as it sounds now from our discussion. We have not heard of any hack that the Windows user got hacked and Bitcoin got stolen from a Bisq wallet after 2 years or 2.5 years and whatever, how many trades we had all in all. So I think the same is, of course, I think Android landscape is probably comparable with Windows from security point of view. So there are tons of viruses and trojans and all kind of malware out for Android. But at the end, how much have you heard that? I mean, people are still using mobile wallets. It's super en vogue. I mean, many people are just mobile first and don't want to have any desktop computer. So maybe the problem in reality is also not so huge as we are. Yeah. And I mean, we luckily have a core group of users who are very technically skilled and very cypherpunky, and they really want to have then the full security. I think the best what we can do is that we are providing the tools. So when you want to be secure, you can be secure, and the mainstream user who don't care or don't understand it, we cannot really change. We just can try to inform him good enough, and when he ignore everything, yeah, it's his responsibility. We cannot change the world.
Well, and I believe Bisq changes the world.
No, I also hope that we are changing the world in some aspects, but I think, some people, I mean, we have to deal with the reality that some people just don't care about this. And then it comes back, what's the maximum loss? I mean, when they have their life savings on their mobile wallet, then they will care or should care, and if not, they will pay a big cost for learning that they should have cared. And usually people have small amount what they are taking at risk. I mean, when they lose half a Bitcoin, okay, they've lost half a Bitcoin. It will hurt, but it's not the end of the world. And I think with in that landscape that you can manage your risk exposure at the end, how much you put in your wallet, that's at the end your risk exposure. And if you use it, you don't need to use it when you prefer convenience over security, and when you're too lazy to have a second device for having secure 2FA, and when you're lazy to read any warnings, okay, then you are at risk.
Does that influence the whole security of Bisq? Does it influence other users?
No, it's just your so it's only the money what you have in your Bisq wallet, which is on risk. Also only the money which is available and which is in your office, so the money which is locked in other trades is also not at risk. it's like you give access, you start your Bisq application and somebody else take over the keyboard. So you cannot, I mean, yeah.
Yes, but that's why I'm asking, because if an attacker can gain more than just the affected user's riches, let's say, then we have to do something to override the user.
Can you be more specific? What do you mean exactly? I mean, it cannot be a systematic attack that somebody managed to hack somehow the network and get access to all wallets. That's not possible, and that, of course, would be a terrible risk. He can get access and get control over the API, only what's exposed over the API. So when, I mean, maybe you are even deactivating trades that you only say, I want to make offers and keep that live. And when a trade happens, I will take over and go to my laptop and do it from there.
Yes, of course. That's why I ask if an attacker is able to affect other users by compromising one user. It's a huge risk. If that is not possible, I think, yeah.
In a way, it's because he could make trades with other users and maybe they end up in arbitration or whatever. And of course, that's a damage then for the other trader. But I think that's
taking off. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's limited. And I think what's really important for the API to have a kind of like a whitelist or blacklist of API endpoints, what you expose and what you don't allow. And maybe there can be different configurations for this, that you say, okay, from this IP or from whatever, that you have different login profiles, and that you say, okay, at home I have really secured 2FA. When I'm on traveling, I only have my normal mobile, and it's not so secure. I only want to be able maybe to take an offer out, but I don't want to enable trading really. So when somebody take over, he cannot fulfill a trade, because that's not possible with the API access there. And I think then at least those users who are more careful, they can configure their risk exposure and their what they want to be exposed, even on a non-relay secure device. I'm not sure how complicated that will be to have really different profiles, but a basic whitelist or blacklist that in your config, Bisq config, you just have a list of commands which are allowed, similar like in Bitcoin conf, that you say a server is 1 or a server is 0, then you cannot do anything with RPC. I think something like this should be done anyway. And with that, you can get already quite far. And then later we can improve it, maybe to have more sophisticated versions that are maybe at the same time your API is configured that, when you're coming from an undefined IP address, you only can do the very minimal and you cannot do a lot of harm. When you come from a whitelisted IP address, then you have more rights, but you can, you're enabling more API endpoints.
I think that shouldn't be too hard, actually.
Yeah. No, I think the hard of it part is do the two-factor authentication right.
Yeah, I mean, Florian, what do you see beside the user problem? Of course, that's a hard problem, and we cannot really solve this, that there will be users who just ignore everything and don't understand it. But beside this, ignore on the just technical side, when it's basically a normal Google Authenticator system where you have on your other device your two-factor authentication, and you have your normal login-based token system. Do you see any issues with this model from the architecture, from the concept? Or do you think that's basically best practice and safe? I mean, I'm not sure about the token of the time to live and how long a token is valid. I think that's something what we should discuss, that the token maybe have a relatively short time to live and you need to relog in or whatever. Of course, it shouldn't be annoying that the user has to relog in every 10 minutes. But at least that day when you're, I don't know, I think time to live of the tokens is an important property, what we should discuss. But from the basic architecture, do you think that's good enough?
depends on the type of second factor. If you use the second factor authentication that is often used with e-banking, for example, introducing a third party, for example, a short message service, something like this, we have something we cannot control, and it's hard to implement.
Also, I'm considering Google Authenticator, for instance. Also, not at all any text message that's terribly insecure, because the customer cares agents from the mobile operators are then your trusted third party, and they get compromised. That's a terrible bad system. Just default Google Authenticator or other alternatives like that. That's what
you trust Google.
I mean, I think there are other systems. I'm not very familiar with the other alternatives, and I think there is this universal two-factor authenticator, and some open source-based alternative would be for sure better. But something which is easy also for users to use, which is available when it's something that you cannot install on the normal phone, because there are no binaries or no. But yeah, I'm not familiar with this. And I mean, realistically, yes, I would trust Google in that case. I don't think that Google will be a security risk, privacy risk. But I mean, as soon as you're using a Google or Apple application on the mobile, you don't have the same privacy like when you're running it on your desktop. And so I would not see Google as a security risk to use Google Authenticator.
Yes, of course, but I would, following that, I wouldn't consider a short message service provider a security risk as well. They just provide the infrastructure.
Yeah, but I mean, if there are open source two-factor authenticator, just from the basic the concept of universal two-factor authentication system is probably a little bit better, like the one from Google. I'm not super up to date with this stuff, but that would be for sure better to have such a system. It fits much more to everything what we do. Yeah. But assuming to use something like this and this password-based token, which have probably a time to live built in, do you see this architecture as secure enough when the two-factor is really used on a separate device?
I'm not sure how you can use two separate devices to create or provide the second password. That's not. I'm not sure how this would work in reality.
Yeah, that you are. You need to log in. Then you get asked for the two-factor key. You are going to your second mobile, take the key there, type it in the other device, and it gets sent as a. Okay. And the counterpart need to be a part of the server. So the two-factor, the key for the two-factor need to run there to verify if this token what you received from the two-factor authentication is valid.
Okay.
And
yes, sounds fine to me.
I just saw that the YubiKey, they have a Java client to use, and it looks quite easy. Maybe it's not such a big deal to integrate that as well.
One thing about the usability, I don't know anyone running around the town with two mobile devices, one to connect with Bisq and the other to authenticate. And for trading bots, I want to have this automated, and I don't want them to call me, and anytime the token expires, I would have to attend to my desktop and
I assume that trading
authentication, the new
I assume the trading bot use case is that you run the trading bot on the same machine on the server, and you are running it localhost actually. Or
Well, yeah, but so for trading bots, you don't need two-factor authentication, and the only use case for it is where users are manually interacting with Bisq, so probably through mobile device. I don't see any other use case. And in this, well, maybe other use case would be that they have some sort of desktop client that connects to remote instance.
Yeah, I think the desktop, also people with laptops, yeah, they're not always online. They want to have their office online. I think that's a valid use case to have your laptop and then you go to the web page and you're logging in there and see and yeah, take it. And then of course the two-factor is much easier because yeah, then it's the classical way. You have your two-factor on the mobile and you're logging in over your computer. On the other, I mean, I've never heard and used it myself, two-factor authentication on the desktop, but I think it should work as well, or there shouldn't be any reason why you cannot do it the other way around. So of course, when you're on the way and only have your mobile with you, yeah, then it's in your hand, then you're more on risk, and you should have a configuration that you cannot do something really critical. And if you do it, then you should not have too much money there. Otherwise, you basically don't have a lot of security. But for those users who want to have the convenience that they can access it from anywhere with their mobile and don't have a second device, I think we cannot offer anything. I mean,
you can. Maybe you can add the. I think it is a second factor. If you have your mobile phone to remote control your server, desktop PC, something like that, and then you want to, let's say, your bot decides to sell something or accept an offer or something like that. If then your mobile phone gets a message and asks for your confirmation, that is another type of second factor. And your trading bot or Bisq itself does only perform the action if you say on the second factor on your mobile device yes or no, and it only performs the task if you press the yes button, for example.
So you mean to have the manual, the user interaction, so that a malware cannot automatically drain your wallet with whatever, that you manually need to click the button.
Exactly.
I mean, I think for certain use cases, for trading bots, that's what you want to avoid. So probably I'm not sure if that really is what you
yes, of course.
But for normal, I think that's a pretty good idea, because most of this attack scenario is not that somebody has really your mobile in the hand and has stolen your mobile. The most are malware, which is doing the stuff automatically. And this malware, of course, is not smart enough to click a button and to go to some or whatever, do some, and maybe there's a capture and something, whatever. But yeah, I think that's an interesting approach to request an extra manual step for anything which is important, like taking, doing something in the trade, taking an offer or confirming something, or make a transfer that you're sending money out. I think that's not a bad idea. Maybe we could use email confirmation for this also. I mean, that you have to go to your to your email client and do something there and confirming it. I mean, that's also already harder for stupid malware, at least. And
yes, of course, it's the same principle.
Yeah, I mean, with email we have done the issue how you send this email. We don't want to run an email server on the as a user. It's too complicated than to run a SMTP server on your server where you have the headless version. Maybe email is not really a good option, but I mean, there are some. Also, we have the plan anyway for a Bisq application, and there in the Bisq application we can implement whatever. So we are very free there. But I think we also need to consider the use case where, especially as long the mobile application is not out, that users just want to go to the web page and type in some API commands and get some and do something with this. And then, of course, it's more limited what how we can use this.
I have to say, I'd like to see a list of clear use cases, a clear list of use cases we want to address with this API.
Yeah, that's actually a good topic. Bernard, have you had a look to the survey so far? Also, Bernard started a survey a few days ago asking the users what they plan to use, for which use cases they plan to use the API. Can you give a overview?
Yes, I've got 20 responses. So 30% says they want to write automated bot, 55% want to run on a server in a headless mode, 35% want to access on mobile, and then one person wants to integrate in my coin tracking, run Bisq on a Noodle, write small client desktop. That's it.
Okay, so the big part is to remote control your Bisq instance, either from a mobile phone or from your local PC.
Yeah, I think so.
Bernard, could you add these rough numbers to the issue so we get everybody can look it up? Roughly, you can update it then after 1 or 2 weeks when there are more feedback. Yeah, but basically it confirms what we expected, that mobile, normal remote access, that you have it just running, and we got a lot of this feedback that people only have a laptop and it's not always online, and then when they want to have Office, it doesn't work easy. And and trading bots, I think those are the use cases, the main use cases. And I think trading bot is the easiest because I think most will run it on local host, and then it's in their hand. And the other two are basically the same. If you access it from your desktop or a browser or from your mobile, is not so much difference, especially when the desktop is Windows. With two-factor authentication, of course, we have by default the standard way. When it's desktop, then you have two-factor on the mobile. The other way around is not so usual. Yeah, maybe we should think a little bit about this manual step that you have to confirm manually something when it's something important. I think that's it's also usual stuff what the exchanges are usually doing, that when you want to send out money, you have to confirm it extra with either a text message or an email or whatever. So you have a little bit of extra friction, and it makes it harder. I mean, it's probably also not really perfectly safe, but security is not you never get 100% security anyway. So it's just have to make it as hard that it not becomes a real problem. So, but I think, maybe Bernard, you can think a little bit about how to conceptually how to do this. It's not very obvious for this low-tech access that you just type in your comments in the browser. How you interact with email. I said it's probably complicated. Getting text messages on mobile, I think it's one of the worst ideas and least secure. The email probably even better.
Push notifications.
Push notifications in the browser?
For mobile phones. So if you have your Android mobile phone, you get the push notification and it says,
that's a good point. So we could use the Bisq notification app. Might be some option to use what we have with the notification app already, where we get the push notification, and to have to click a button there. I mean, that might be not so bad. And the push notification cannot do anything active, so you cannot. You could get basically from the server a kind of like a token or a challenge. You get something back, a key from the server or a small pin in the push notification. I think that we can do, So when you want to, for instance, withdraw money from your wallet, then the server sends you a push notification, a PIN, and then you have to make a second call where you confirm with the PIN your request, and this PIN has a lifetime from 2 minutes or whatever. And yeah, when you can do this, then it's fine, and the PIN is only displayed in the push notification. Of course, a smart malware might get this data as well, but it's at least already harder. As we have to do it again over API call, because the other push notification application cannot send anything back. It's only one way. Can only receive data, but there's no way to send anything back.
Yeah, well, you can do a HTTP request via Tor, for example. The backlink.
Yeah, that could be done also in the push notification app as a new feature. Yeah, that would okay.
I don't know how this fits into Bisq, but we did it on a university, something like that, and it worked great.
Yeah, I think it's just the current push application gets from the desktop over Tor, over the relay server gets the data, and because there is no Tor implemented, so you cannot talk back to the Bisq application which runs in Tor. But with the API, we have the HTTP interface, so with that it's possible to send something back, HTTP request, and when it's routed over Tor, even better.
Yeah, I think maybe we wait for Bernhard. Bernhard has left. Okay, we wait for Bernhard to include the information we said about the use cases and so on, and maybe a detailed description of use cases to the proposal, and then we can think about, or some of us can think about the situation, the security environments and requirements we have.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need maybe to make it in several steps, like this idea with the push notification application that will require extra work and need to be done on iOS and Android. So it's another developer also.
Of course.
So I would like to not get the dependency that we cannot roll this out before that is there. It's just improvement of security, and it's on the roadmap then. But it's basically the basic security model should be safe enough for those people who care, and those who are not, who don't have the real two-factor authentication, they get then a second option with the push notification app where we are adding more security, and has to be clear that it's not the same level of security like a second device two-factor authentication, but at least it's better like nothing.
So we can add to the proposal, we can add some kind of roadmap, which feature gets added when, and something like this, so that we can keep track of the progress.
Yeah, I think it's probably good to start with the minimum, which is this token-based login security, plus the two-factor authentication. I would put this by default as the first version what we want to roll out. And after this, a second proposal maybe, because that will be then implemented probably by Joachim, to add this feature to the notification app, and to add this extra security.
Okay, regarding this two-factor authentication with one-time password, we need to store this initial password somewhere, and we cannot store it as a digest, because the library that will calculate this one-time password for the verification, it will have to have the access to the plain text version of the password.
Yeah, I mean, I would maybe do this that the user need to set up the server anyway, and I would do this only on the server side, so you cannot set your password remotely. That you set your password on the server, and to have only the hash stored is for sure more safe. To maybe, but then you have no recovery. When you forget your password, you're locked out. But it's only I think it's not a big problem because it's only the remote access, and yeah, you are setting a new password on the server and you're free again. And it would keep it separate with the wallet password. I mean, with the wallet.
No, Manfred. For the for two-factor authentication, well, the way the two-factor authentication works is that you have the initial password, and then the timestamp is added, and then that's your one-time password. So,
sorry, I was confusing.
Yeah, but you need to have the initial password anyway, right? And we need to store it.
Yeah. I would see it the same. I mean, I also password recovery, I would not see as a requirement, because the worst thing is that you have to go to your server and set it up new and delete the old one and make a new one, and then the new password and
yes, but on your desktop we have to keep it in plain text. We cannot store a digest. We cannot store the digest because it's
you have to derive the working password then. Yes.
Yeah.
May I suggest? I posted some comment to the proposal half an hour ago, or something like this. I added the link in the chat where I thought about using certificate authentication. So public key cryptography, basically. You have the public key. You make a challenge response thingy where you send a timestamp and some nonce to the client. The client signs, cryptographically signs this challenge and sends back the result or something like this. Maybe that is easier to do.
You mean instead of the two-factor authentication?
No, instead of the time-based second factor password thingy. Just to think about. Maybe that's the cleaner solution.
Yeah, I would need to read. It's not really very clear now how, from the user perspective, how would this work then?
Yes, you can create your key, your certificate, something like that, in the Bisq application, and then you have this file or two files. Mm-hmm. In the Bisq application, you say, well, this very key is allowed to do something or something not. And on your client device, you say this is the private key, and the private key is only available on the client device. And with the private key, you can digitally sign every message you get from the server, from the Bisq application, for example. And with the public key, the Bisq application can verify that you actually are in possession of the private key, and so
so you have the private key is created on the mobile, and you send somehow the public key to the server, and then the server knows always that's the mobile which has signed up, basically.
Yes, you can do it both ways. You can let the Bisq application create the key and transfer the key to the mobile phone or to your laptop or something like that. Or do it the other way around and say, well, you try to access the API and Bisq says, well, I do not know this public key. Are you trusting this public key? And then you have the public key. It's the same thing, basically, yes.
Yeah, but when somebody has access to your mobile, how does it help them?
Modern mobile phones do offer embedded secure elements. We did a lot of work in this regards on the university back then. Basically, the secure element is hardware-assisted security, and it's very hard. It's very, very hard. It's basically state-of-the-art that you can protect key material from malware, and even if your mobile phone gets attacked thoroughly, the chances are high that the secure element isn't giving up the private key. So that is the case for the mobile phone. So this would be very secure, I say. On the on your laptop, yes, well, private key like SSH, you set the correct permissions and that's it. You're muted. You are muted.
Sorry. How does it help? I mean, when you want to withdraw money from your over the API, it would. I mean, the private key would sign automatically a challenge from the server,
yes.
And when you compromise, it will do this the same way. Or I don't really see how it's comparable. I mean, with two-factor authentication, you have to go to your other device, get the key, and then go back and enter the key, and your compromised mobile have no key material from the two-factor authentication, only the server and the other second device. But then you have the key there, even if the attacker has no access of the key, but you need to generate the signature what you want to send, and that has to be done manually, because you cannot. I don't really understand the use case how you could
that's correct.
use this.
Maybe you can truncate the signature, lower the security, and have 5-digit hash, something like this.
That you do it on another device, or
you sign the challenge and only use the first number of bytes. In base 464, for example, and then you transfer this manually to the other app. I don't know. But I must say I have my issues with this two-factor authentication, where you go from one device to another, because if you are on the way, you are on the road, and you want to authenticate your mobile phone to use the API, you basically cannot go back to your server. And
I'm aware it's limited. When you only have your mobile, it doesn't really add much. But at least for those who want to access from your laptop, then I think it's the usual stuff. Like when you're logging into your bank account, as long as it's not Deutsche Bank, because they still don't have two-factor authentication. But one of the biggest banks in the world, and they're too dumb to build a two-factor authentication. Anyway, I think we should get to an end. It's already more than 1 hour. I think it was very good discussion, and maybe Bernhard, you just summarizing the discussion and the use cases and the findings from the survey and what we discussed with the second, with using their notification app as additional security in this case when you are basically on only one device and the two-factor authentication doesn't really help, and maybe get a little bit in the details how the two-factor authentication and the key management and so should be handled. And maybe I'm not sure if we need to have I don't want to occupy too much time for this topic in the dev calls. Maybe we keep it then between Florian and Bernhard mainly, and I also maybe want to stick out a little bit and only review then the final solution. And and then maybe when there's a final solution to make a summary. Is it okay for you, or would you like to continue? I don't want to.
Sure, for me it's okay. I will update the proposal, and we will wait probably for the feedback from others. Meanwhile, I'm implementing this token and password-based local thing.
Yeah, perfect. Maybe we'll wrap it up. Maybe a preview for the next session. Is anything from your side? What's important? What you would like to get in the next agenda?
Nothing special, but maybe we can just post it in the issue if something comes up. So maybe I guess you create the issue quite soon, so everyone can.
I mean, when it works out for Nyman and for Craig, I would love to use the new trade protocol as the next topic. It's very important work, and I think most people are not really aware about it, and a few open questions and discussions and so on. So I would like to ask everybody to read the document, also the text spec and the I think the tech spec is enough. There's a proposal, but it was a lot of discussion and so on. It's not worth to read everything, but just a summary, basically the current plan, how we want to implement it. Maybe wait 2 days or so, because we have changed a few things which are not reflected yet in the tech spec, so that should get in the next days. And it takes maybe 1 hour, so you have to reserve a little bit time for this, but I think it's important that everybody understands this. And yeah, and then Naiman and Craig can make a little bit the presentation about this, and we discuss about it, and if any questions or comments or concerns or whatever. Because it's planned that we have a hard fork basically on the trade protocol side after the DAO, when the DAO is out and stable, that we are releasing the new trade protocol, and the old trade protocol with the arbitration will then only work with users who have not updated. And there's a little bit of change just as a preview. Earlier, we wanted to kick out arbitration completely, and now to avoid that users get too scared with a completely new model, we will support it as an optional possibility. So there will be still an arbitration, but we try to create incentives that people are not using it much and less, also basically over the fees, that it becomes more expensive when you want to have the extra feature with the arbitration as well. And I think with that, the transition should become easier. Yeah, if that's okay for you, I would wrap it up here.
Yes, I think I want to add, I will provide some overview over testing frameworks, I think, and list the pros and cons for each testing framework, so that if we find the time to discuss them, we have a solid base where we can make a decision. Perfect. In a rather short time.
Sounds great. Are you adding mocking frameworks as well, or just regular testing frameworks?
I'm open to every framework. I've never done GUI testing, so maybe that is where you come in and you can provide me some input.
Yeah, cool. So let's keep it on the next agenda. If you can manage to get this, we take it next agenda. Otherwise, we can postpone it also to the upcoming then. But I think with those 2 topics, we have probably enough. And maybe then when the next step from the monitoring is out, maybe you can we can take this as a topic, and maybe then Bitcoin we have a lot. Okay, then let's stop here. Thanks for everybody for your time and interesting discussion, and see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.